The memory never left. My father's words sharpened their casual cruelty. "You're an embarrassment to this family." He handed my sister the check, 85,000, and smiled as if the gesture were the only thing that mattered. I nodded, swallowed the sting, and said nothing. No one said anything. Not my mother, not my sister, no one. The room hummed with polite silence that smelled faintly of disappointment, directed at me. For years, I carried that label quietly, tucked behind a thin layer of civility. In family photographs, I existed at the edges, unnoticed, or worse, noted only for what I lacked. I watched my sister grow in my father's approval, praised for her charm, her timeliness, her successes that were always highlighted in conversation. I learned early that arguing, demanding recognition, or venting hurt was futile. My silence became armor, my restraint, a private rebellion. I focused elsewhere. Small, almost invisible steps, learning a skill here, completing a project there, testing ideas no one would notice. I measured progress not by applause but by results, by whether I could wake each day and feel a faint pulse of pride. Every failure, every misstep became a lesson in patience. Every small victory, a brick laid in a foundation my father would never see. Or so I thought. Family gatherings became exercises in endurance. The laugh I held back, the retort I swallowed, each was a quiet calculation. I observed more than I spoke, noting the patterns of favoritism, the tiny shifts in authority, the way my father's attention was a currency I would not receive. I began to understand the power in invisibility. When others underestimate you, they reveal their strategies without realizing it. I learned to move quietly, deliberately, building in the spaces they ignored. The turning point arrived slowly. A venture I had begun almost without expectation, a small business barely noticed at first, grew beyond the margins of family awareness. Contracts, partnerships, recognition in circles that mattered outside our household. I kept most of it private, sharing only what was necessary in passing, letting others witness the results rather than the effort. The first moment my father noticed was subtle. A family friend mentioned my work in passing, noting my role in an event that had drawn local attention. His glance lingered brief, as if trying to reconcile the image with the one he had etched in his mind decades earlier. My sister laughed, eager to tell the story of her own accomplishments, but I let it pass, nodding politely, nothing more. The silence carried more weight than words ever could. Months later, he saw it clearly, my office building, modest but undeniably mine, and a photograph of me at a local recognition ceremony prominently displayed in the local newspaper. His hands faltered as he flipped the pages, pausing at the sight of my name. The recognition, the tangible proof, could not be ignored. "I underestimated you," he said, voice low, almost hesitant. Not proud, not mocking. Just the admission I had waited for in silence all those years. Nothing else was said, no celebration, no tears, no dramatic confrontation, just acknowledgement, finally, in the calmest form possible. I nodded, smiling faintly, not for him, not for my sister, but for myself. Years of quiet work, careful decisions, and measured restraint had brought me here. I did not need applause. I did not need a crown. The victory was mine alone, wrapped in quiet satisfaction, layered with the memory of every insult endured, every moment dismissed. Family dynamics did not magically transform. My sister remained my sister, my father remained my father, but the balance had shifted. Where once there was a gulf of dismissiveness, there was now a subtle, undeniable respect. He would not parade it, he would not overtly apologize, but the acknowledgement altered the room's energy. For the first time in years, I occupied a space my father could not ignore. The irony was not lost on me. The check he had given my sister, meant to elevate her, had left me untethered in ways that forced me to build my own life. The resentment that had once hollowed me out became fuel for creation, persistence, and strategic patience. I had not taken anything from anyone. I had simply created my own measure of worth in a space where no one had expected it. I learned something essential about authority and recognition. It is not given. It is earned, sometimes in silence, sometimes behind closed doors, sometimes in the absence of anyone noticing. And when it comes, it can be quiet, it can be measured, it can exist without spectacle. I still carry the sting of that day, the words, the check, the silent room, but they no longer define me. They became the backdrop against which I painted a life that no one could easily dismiss. And that in itself was enough.